growing up in Toronto, we get really difficult winters. My grandmother, she's an old Italian lady, grew my hair out one time past my shoulders. And I would go to visit her in the morning and say, can you do me a favor? Can you put my hair in braids? And she'd give me these 2 braids. So that was it was a hell of a time. I had that hair until I actually visited Portugal the first time I had hair that long. That was the first time I came to Portugal. I remember I landed in Porto with a friend of mine, and we rented a car, and we drove south. I thought, oh, it smells like what I imagined Portugal to smell like. There was some, in the news they were talking about the fires, and then I thought, oh, it does smell like forest, wood, and stuff when you land in Porto, you know? And then we drove. We got the rental car. It was a little Peugeot 206, navy blue with 4 doors, hatchback. We drove to the Algarve to meet his girlfriend, who was another Canadian girl who'd been dating for a minute, and we stayed there for a few days before embarking on a 6,000 kilometer journey in that car with 1 CD all through Spain. It was Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here, and then later we acquired some other CD by the Human League from like 1981 or something. I think it was it was quite interesting. We also acquired something I'm not going to mention on camera, but it came from Morocco by way of his cousin David, and it lasted longer than our trip, so we left it in the glove box when we arrived at the Porto airport. So there's that. But the hair, to go back to the hair, it was really quite long, and when I arrived in Portugal, it's kind of cool because you have a very sort of eclectic surf culture at the time. It's always been that way. You always have surfing here in some way, shape, or form. But when I arrived in Spain, the first place in Spain I went to was Galicia, in the northern area where the frontier, where the 3 rivers are. And his grandfather had fought in the 2 world wars, a civil war, and had lost an eye. So here's a guy with a patch, and he's like 90 years old, and he says, "Bien, bien, ¿dónde encontraste esta mujer?" And I'm like, wow, he's calling me a girl because I have long hair. So he's asking my friend Oscar, he said, where did you find this girl, and why did he get tired of being a man? So that was my first experience with a Spanish sort of old man. And then the next time I came was for my first Trojan Horse was Unicorn, which was, at first you get the email and you're like, what is this thing? What a THU, Trojan Horse was like, who made this name up? Like who's, as you know, I was the brand manager for ZBrush for many years. And I thought, man, these people need my help more than ever when it comes to branding their product, because no one's going to remember what this is. They're just going to butcher the name or call it some other, you know. I made all kinds of names up already in the time we've known each other, like, you know, Birth Canal of Cool, 1 man, 1 horse, 1 horn, 1 tribe. So you can see how that goes. But yeah, the next time I came was through Andre Louis and all of you who have become like my, you know, 3rd family, to be honest with you. It's really something remarkable. And the meetings and the types of conversations I've had with people here are of the highest. I mean, it's like some of the most energizing and psychologically challenging questions that I've left here asking myself as a human being. And, you know, it just continues to be that way. Like I was literally pulled from a table a moment ago to do this conversation with you guys because, I mean, I was sitting there at a table. It was kind of surreal. I was like, man, this just keeps on getting better every year. I thought, this can't be happening, you know? And everyone who comes treats you like they've been your friend for a long time, you know? It's quite remarkable. I'm sitting with guys and gals who have set the barometer for what is the high watermark of entertainment. So yeah, I've been a few times. This is my 3rd time. And the first time was just with the Noman School of Visual Effects where I teach ZBrush. And I was asked to come and do some 3-day workshop, and I thought, well, that's cool, you know. And then the next time, you know, and I did talk, of course. And the first time I did the talk, I was like, man, this is nuts. Like Scott Ross shows up to see my talk, and I'm like, the guy's a founder of like a major Hollywood studio. Why is he coming to see me? There's like so many other people here. I'm just a teacher from Noman, like. And also in the front row was someone who's become very dear to me. I mean, everyone is very dear to me, but this guy lives like 6 minutes from my house in Los Angeles, conveniently, and it's my soul brother and co-conspirator in all things creative when it comes to films and art. It's Louie Zimmerman. And we just sort of meteoric friendship. And then, you know, again, the next time I came to Portugal, so I've been coming 1, 2, 3. I've been to Portugal more places than any other place on the planet. At first I was like, well, these people need my help. When I arrived the first time I arrived, I thought, oh, this is really something I can get behind, you know? And then the second time, with the first THU TV, when they contacted me, they said, we have a special project we're working on. We want you to be the host of an online streaming program. See, most people don't, I don't know if they know, but there's some suspect white stains on this couch, and it's making me nervous. I don't know what's been going on. We're in a suite, by the way, live high above the ground floor of the Troya Design Hotel and Casino, so this is kind of funny. Who knows what's going on here? We're deep into the week now. Apparently someone's been deep into either the sugar or something else, but that's another story. Sort of shortly after we left the first time and went back to the Gnomon School, something called the ZBrush Summit happened, and then I was the host of that because it was the company I worked for. And the ZBrush Summit was a 3-day live event, live streaming, and happening in Hollywood on the grounds of the Gnomon School of Visual Effects, where I still teach digital sculpting and ZBrush. But I guess he saw those videos, and the rest of the team members saw the videos and thought, well, this is our crazy person that we're looking for. And they approached me to host THU TV last year, and I thought, oh, that's perfect. And so that was something that was a real challenge, because I thought, well, how can I create like an energy about this that captures the way I feel, but also allows me to still retain my personal identity? And that's where the tights were born. It was kind of like wearing a mask, but a physical mask, where I could just be free to, kind of like an exercise in character design or like art direction in real life. It's not male, it's not female, it's not right or wrong. It's just operating on a very pure cosmic sort of vibration, Whereas I'm a human being, I have my own flaws. So for a moment, I get to be like in this extreme place of like cosmic perfection. It just allows me to like, when I'm in that place where that person is on, I would say like, there's no clock, there's no time, there's that. And then at the same time, that character affords me a real sort of shield, because it is an extension of myself, but at the same time, I'm not, I'm protected in some ways from, just like everyone else is, it's a point of reference for saying, well, everything's possible. We can become whatever we want. That's probably the most important message, is that, a lot of people ask me about the tights. They're like, where are the tights this year? Where are the tights this year? And I like to take a moment to like stop people and frame this for them in a way that is probably pretty mature at this point, because I've been thinking about it a long time. You have to be willing to go out on a limb and create something like that. But at the same time, and that goes for every kind of creative process, you have to be willing to write a script that is going to frighten you, right? And you have to be willing to accept the fact that the characters in the script are going to conjure in you maybe feelings you weren't ready to deal with, I won't spoil anything, but tonight we're going to show a film, and it's completely autobiographical, when it comes down to it. And those things, if you're completely autobiographical in the way you compose things as an artist, right? People say, they walk up to me and they see me in this get up and they say, what do you do? Like, are you an artist? And now it's gotten to the point where the people around me say, yeah, like yes, he certainly is. But I am, but I'm not one of these people that would walk around saying, oh, I'm a modeler, I'm a painter, I'm a guitarist, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a dancer, I'm a soccer player, I'm a martial artist, I'm a wino, I'm a smoker, I'm a toker, I'm a midnight joker. All of those things is like, I've taken time to think about them and think that there's not like, when you start to compartmentalize a character, then you lose the potential for it to be anything it wants. So that's the real message from me this year to everyone, because I've heard some really great talks, and I think that people are getting caught up in the idea of like plugging themselves into like machines, where they're like thinking, oh, my only goal in life is to work at a studio. Well, that's great, but then what? What about you? Like this morning I listened to a talk and they're asking, where do you find inspiration from contemporary examples of film, et cetera? And the person responding was Rob Rubel. This is a dear friend of mine. Everyone's a dear friend of mine. He was my digital painting teacher once at the beginning, long ago. And he said, well, I don't have internet, and I read books and exercise and like cooking food. And it was like, it's the books that can provide you with, if you take the time to read something and you don't take inspiration from contemporary samples, that's where real new work comes from. Not copying, it's not, everything can't be derivative. I love Star Wars, but there's more to life than stormtroopers. Last year this started last year because someone asked me to draw in their sketchbook. Ricardo's his name, Coelho. He asked me, can you draw in my sketchbook? And I said, sure. And at some point this deep into the evening conversation, he was like asking me all these questions and recording something, and I just really wanted to finish drawing him his picture in his little book and get on with my bourbons. I had like 2 drinks, and I started filling in the paint with my left hand and started drawing with my right hand, and I was like, I'm just trying to finish this thing. And he's like, oh, that's incredible, you're like using both your hands. And it's like, yeah, I'm ambidextrous. But I'm ambidextrous because that's just who I am, It's not that I don't have handedness either. I don't think about it like that. I just think, what is all of the things, whether they're musical, whether they're pictographic, whether they're in words, whether they're songs, whether they're installation pieces, whether they're conversations with your friends, they should be coming from a very real place. And with me, they're coming from the same central fire that's burning, obviously. And the tool I use just changes, It's all the same. Whether it's a 3D sculpt in ZBrush that goes to 3D print, whether it's a painting in oil, whether it's pencils, whether it's me drawing with crayons with my daughter on the wall, which we're not supposed to do at my house, apparently. Or whether it's having a conversation like this, it's coming from the same creative space. Like there's no compartmentalization. The faster you can come into tune with that, then the more expansive your ideas can be. I can recall starting out as a kid and being told not to use my left hand, so maybe that's why. Come from an Italian family, it's like la sinistra, which is like the hand closest to the devil, it's like known to be like the evil hand, you don't use that. But and if you were to think about it as an artist, and if everybody here stopped and paused and looked beyond just the surface level of things and thought, maybe there's a talk that confuses you, and its subject matter is heavy or light or funny or hard to deal with, or maybe you think that it's on the surface about something, and you allow yourself to just consider the surface of what it might be, then you've lost the opportunity to look at the storytelling and the narrative potential of the rest of the story, right? And as visual people, most of the people here, 9 out of 10 people, unless they're involved in the corporate side of the business, which there are some of our friends are here, from strictly sort of corporate job types, who do marketing, who do other things that are just as valuable and just as artistic. I mean, being a marketing professional doesn't mean that you're not an artist. It's a different type of artistry. It's still linked to like an emotional intelligence. If you have emotional intelligence and empathy, and you're willing to look at written words and other different points of inspiration that come from outside of the world that you're trying to be a part of, then probably your contributions are going to be that much more advanced and further along the line. Yeah, I think so. I remember being like 4 years old and watching Hawaii 5 on television. We had this like terrible little old wooden TV or whatever, and I remember thinking, oh, that's interesting. This guy Frankie Avalon, if he's on TV, I could be anything I want. I didn't find him too entertaining. not that I'm throwing rocks at the guy, but I just thought, oh, that's interesting. But I always thought, like, I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid. I mean, I don't think school was for me at all. I can remember thinking, like, I just wish I could be in university reading books and writing essays. And I'm back in university now. Most people have been asking me like what I'm doing, and I said, well, I quit everything except for teaching, obviously, because I love it. I don't even do the teaching for money. Obviously I get paid, but I don't do teaching I went full steam into teaching at the Los Angeles Academy of Figurative Art and the Noman School of Visual Effects and the Art Directors Guild of America for animators and illustrators. I do all of those jobs because they're closer to the ideal of what I'm saying. I'm trying to share the flame with people because I realize that I'm mortal and that I won't be around forever, obviously. So the more people that I can burn with it, at least they'll remember they got burned with it, and maybe they can try to get up themselves a bit, But for me, I'm finished. I'm 7. If I behave myself, I'm 8 weeks away from finishing my master's degree at the University of Southern California, and for the most part, in the daytime, I work with teenagers from in sort of poorer neighborhoods, and I don't teach them art. Well, hang on, let me rephrase that. I'm a history teacher in the public school system in Los Angeles because of my own sort of choosing to walk away from the jobs I was doing before. But that still has found a way, or that particular gig or job or calling, let's call it a calling, those kids come from very rough neighborhoods and they don't have a lot of money, and sometimes they don't speak English as a first language. And it forces me to be even more creative with how I communicate with people. So the last year I spent teaching history with cartoons to people. We all use emoticons on our phones, and I can send you, right now, if I were to draw on the wall a heart, a smile, and a drink, you would think, oh, some love, happy times, drinks, And then the time, you don't need to be able to read English to know that means we're going to be meeting at like 7 o'clock for a drink and happy times and love. So if that's true of pictures in that simple way, I've spent a year doing this, and it's actually proven to be quite successful because the children, I give them a picture of a historical character, like a cartoon, we started off the year by talking about shapes, basic shapes, the primitives, just as we do in 3D class, right? And if you think about your life and the society you live in, right? Let's say your country has a prime minister or a king or a queen. Well, what is the shape of that particular country's society? In the case where there's a king, and if we're looking in reverse in history, we say, well, that particular place had one leader, so that means it's like a pyramid. And if we just draw a pyramid on the board, we can start to ask students, what does a pyramid look like, and does a triangle present itself as a shape that seems to be pushing equality? And the answer is no, right? Because only one person can be at the top of a pyramid. So when you start to have that conversation in that way with them, then they say, oh, it's unequal, right? Even if you speak a little bit of English, you can say, oh, that's unequal. It's not even, right? And I can say that's not equal to that, right? Because there's a little bit on the top, más o menos, right? And the people are like, the students say, yeah. So we say, oh, that's unequal. So then I say, if I show you a picture of this society and I put, let's say the Tsar Nicholas of Russia, before the Russian Revolution, which is typical sort of area of study for students, and we draw a picture of this guy, right? This character, we get a bearded guy, he's with his family. And then we draw a bunch of little people, like a cartoon at the bottom, and all the people, and we segregate it. Well, that's how they come to understand a very complex topic. So the pictures are helping people become more literate. Just like a kid when you read a picture book. You look at a picture book and you say cat. So you develop language. So I'm trying to go backwards. I wanted to be an architect. And I could draw from a very young age. My great-grandfather was a shoe designer in Italy to, I think, Victor Emmanuel's family.
It's just making less and less sense.
Yeah, and then my great-uncle was a well-known watercolorist in Canada. And my cousin is probably one of the most preeminent glove designers in North America, the world probably, I would say, with clients that include, I don't want to get into that now, but he's probably one of the last most famous glove designers on the planet, like haute couture gloves. And I think that's when you're a continuation, or you see yourself as a continuation of your family, because you're all the little parts, just like the tight-wearing character that's here. It's a continuation of all of the members of the tribe that have come. Then you have it in you, Now it's all how you try to it's all how you come to terms with it. So I didn't have the skills or the emotional ability to come to terms with it and say, well, that's who I am. So I selected the pursuit of architecture as a means to protect myself from A, turning my back completely on the art as something that I like to do, and B, to pacify my family. Just to say, well, I'm going to be an architect. But something happened along the way. I have my own sort of personal hurdles, and I have some, pretty heavy moments in my life where some things are getting thrown off, and so life isn't perfect. And then that'll throw you completely off of your path, your trajectory. So that's okay as well. It's not some kind of time that you're the world is very ageist in its construction sometimes. People think I have to be done. Somebody was talking about this the other day. I have to be done when I'm 40, When I'm 40, I need to have my house paid off. And I need to have a career. And by 50, they need to be giving me a gold watch. Well, those are just constructs. Again, they come back to what I said about being, right-handed or left-handed, being a man or a boy, or a girl or a woman. They're just things people tell you. Just as I say to you, how old are you? And then you say, well, I'm this old. And well, how do you know that? Well, because they told me, right? So they told you how old you were. Even your age is a construct. But to fast forward, I wanted to be an architect, and I had to leave my school. I went to a private boys' school. But unfortunately, my family, we just made a decision because my mother couldn't pay for me to continue. She was a widow. And so I had to go to the public school across the street. And from there, they have no art programs. They had one art class, and my drama teacher, she almost died when it was time to have our stage play. So, I didn't do those things. And then you have to apply to university. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll just be a lawyer. And I went to the school and studied history, thinking I would just write a law school test and pacify my life that way. But then I kind of had some breakdowns, I was thinking, this is all messed up. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And I just decided that one day I would, I used to work for a bank after I graduated university in the accounting department. I just decided to leave and go to California because I could hear a little voice in my head, since I was a kid, saying, go to California, and I just muted him, or it, And recently I had a friend come and visit, and she said, man, it's so incredible that you're here and you have this life. in this place. And I was like, oh, that's so nice of you to say. And she said, it's really amazing. What's really amazing about it is that you said you were coming here when we were like 5 years old. I thought, really? I didn't remember that. She said, oh yeah, you used to talk about that all the time. I thought, oh man, how weird that is that you could get like so busy and sidetracked with yourself. But it was always about art. That's why I'm there. I discovered digital sculpting in the basement of a friend's house who had come back from Weta, working on Avatar, like 2008, 2009. I just thought, that's the future. If I don't go now, I'll never go. So that's the message, really, is like to say, if you're going to do something, do it. And don't have self-doubts. If you feel like you're going the right direction, then that's what you should do. What is the alternative? Staying complacent and just being your regular old self and working at the bank on the 36th floor, getting in the subway and going along. You see, that's the beginning of many animated shorts. It's like this humdrum kind of character going about. So I applied to the School of Architecture. I was on the waiting list at the University of Toronto while I was working at the bank, and I thought, I'm going to be an architect finally. I got this portfolio. I designed a bunch of furniture that plays musical chords, with stringed. You could tune your furniture, like with guitar tuners, because I play guitar. And I'd made all this furniture that was, it's like cabinet system where you like put your socks in the drawers and you pull your drawers in the morning and they go bum 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 bum. And I met with the guy who was one of the professors there, and he said, "You don't belong here." I was like, "What?" "You should go somewhere else. This isn't the right place for you. The Faculty of Architecture was not the right place for me, apparently, or wasn't the right place for me." And then I said, "Well, I'm leaving. I'm out of here." I was rejected. That's the only time my whole life that I was rejected, that I didn't make the team. I didn't get in, and then I was really heartbroken. Actually, I think I cried. I went to the desk of the lady who was in charge of admissions, and I said, "Are you sure you can't make an exception? Like, I really want to come here. I just quit my job. I don't have any money now. I don't have anywhere. Like, I lost everything. I'm like trying to come to school here so I can be what I'm supposed to be." And this doctor, he said, "No, you should take it as like a sign, and something else is supposed to be the way." So then I left. Actually, no, I didn't. I ended up managing a couple of businesses for a friend of mine in the neighborhood in Little Italy in Toronto. And I got involved in some nightlife, some heavy nightlife, running a jazz bar, and I had many connections in the bar community. So I bumped into a kid who studied architecture, and he was studying at SciArc, which is just an incredible place in downtown Los Angeles, in a very rough neighborhood where you actually have to crawl over homeless people. Literally, there's like 15,000 homeless people that surround this place all the time. It's like either an apocalypse or Resident Evil. And it's seriously like that. So I bumped into him and he said, "Hey, you should go to California. There's this place called the Noman School." And I was like, okay. And I like had an espresso with him on the corner of like College and Grace or whatever in Little Italy. And then I ran home and I went on the computer and I saw that the Noman School was a real thing and they had classes, and I enrolled in a couple of classes. But I knew that I wouldn't do any of the classwork because I was going down a spiral, which many people probably experience, of not only depression, but also like some heavy stuff. Like for a long time there, I was like, wow, this is not going to end well. No, I didn't. I sat around in the neighborhood, had a few nights of wild business, and then decided, I went home one day and I said to my mother, I'm leaving, I'm going to California. I'm not going to do this if I don't leave and go to California. I'm done. I can't stay here anymore. Even a big city like Toronto can be like a small town. I got people who never left my neighborhood. They're still there. They've never been, they've never been outside of that neighborhood. And so I went to California and I landed there, and everything was like, so that's why this is an important conference, because it's actually living proof. On the night that I graduated from university at York University, the chancellor said in a speech, "This has been 5 long years," through this microphone. "Take a look around you. This is the high water mark." He's like, looked like he was going to die. It was like a vampire. It was like Dracula with this like thing and all these crests and things. Like, "This is proof that greatness begets greatness. Surround yourself with greatness and you will be." And I thought, cool. You could have said that to me the first week. I would have dropped out and saved a lot of money. I never did like school. Now look at me. I was having this conversation with a new dear friend. I can say that now. He's become a dear friend of mine, Crash, downstairs. I was talking to Crash McCreary, and he was saying, these institutionalized constructs are in place, and it's like just this one-way ticket to, being medicated. Like kids have ADD, and I said, well, what the problem is that there's an alternative. It's like, either you take the classes that they ask you to take, or you don't have classes to take. What if you went to school or you went to a place like this and you got to just, you went to the workshop that was being offered. They had a certain number of offerings at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m. Maybe you went to lunch. But maybe those offerings were like, 5 different offerings, and you decided that at 9 a.m. you wanted to go to like, pottery class, for instance, because that's how you felt that morning. Maybe tomorrow on Tuesday you feel like going to high school, and it's like, they're offering math class, they're offering physics class, they're offering, physical education class, and maybe, English class, for instance. And you decide on Tuesday morning that, I feel like going to the English class today because I'm curious about something. Why isn't it composed like that? Like, you get to decide what you eat for lunch to some extent. The story of how I became an intern at Pixelogic was very interesting. They put a poster up on the wall, and I remember hearing a story about Enzo Ferrari, the founder of Ferrari. During the war, they mailed a mechanic manual to the base where he was stationed, and he was the first person to receive the mail that day. And he took the mechanic manual and he read it all, and he studied it and he memorized it for a few days, and then he destroyed it. And from that point on, he was the lead mechanic because he was the only one who knew how to work on the thing, so he trained everybody else. And that's how he got a leg up. So I took the poster off the wall. I'm admitting it now, all these years later. I ripped the poster off the wall and I tucked it in my pocket, and I went to my computer and I worked on some models all weekend. And then I went and I gave my submission for my internship there, and basically they said to me, hey, this is kind of weird, but you're the only one who came. And I said, well, you should probably put up another advertisement. Maybe people didn't see it or something. And my first job there was not like some glamorous job. I picked up the phone and I was like a sales representative and a beta tester. So I learned about the software, its ins and outs, and then I hustled. I picked up the phone and I called 6,000 people, in 3 months. It's like, hello, I'm calling on behalf of hello again, people at home. It's like practice for what I do here. The point of this is that I was there in the place where, the school is on the same grounds as the Gnomon School of Visual Effects. So not only was I at the school, I was at the place where the software is made, for instance. The corporate head office for this software that brought me to California in the first place. So all of this was resonating in me, and I thought, oh, it's not an accident. Of course not. How could it be an accident? It was introduced to me in a basement by a friend, family friend. It forced me to move to California because it was the future, right? And when I arrived there, the head office of the software that brought me to America was in front of my face. It's like, I was talking to Alberto Mielgo the other night, and I said, I call it the Rachael Theory. Everybody has this story of like being a little kid and wanting to dance with a girl. And it's like, you're 9 years old and you want to dance with this girl, and you're like, you can either live your life in fear and not go and ask her to dance with you, or you can just go and ask her to dance with you. If you don't ask her to dance with you, what you're doing is creating sort of a personality of sort of fear that you take with you. Later on, when you're 15 years old, you say, well, I'm not good enough to play on the soccer team. And you start to build these self-doubts, and that's all I keep hearing from everyone is all this self-doubt through this whole week. And it's not only this week, it's like students come to class and they say, well, it's not good enough. Well, no, because you've been conditioning yourself to feel like you're not good enough. So the only time that I've ever felt like that is because of other people, not because of me. And that has to do with nothing to do with my capacity as a human being. It has to do with very sort of family-oriented reasons. And that's like, those questions come to the surface when you ask like, hey, why is this happening? Or why did this happen? But that has nothing to do with your interior. That has nothing to do with you believing yourself. I don't start out doing anything without believing in myself. I say, this is going to be the best thing ever. It's now become very apparent to me that it's more important to work with cool people who you like and who you can tolerate and get along with. And actually, more importantly, is to work on interesting projects that you believe in and do that with people that you believe in as human beings. So this whole project that we have going on here is something that I say it all the time to the team. I would work with you guys every day. Like, if we had to do this every day, it would be fine. It has nothing to do with career aspirations at all. It has to do with just, I believe in what we're doing. I believe in our capacity as a group of creative people. I see the result of what we're doing, and that should be what drives you, So in those days when people thought I was crazy. They're like, you're leaving like the most popular software in the world, Well, there's a lifespan to everything. Every project has a lifespan, like you learn that in business school, which I also attended. You say the product has a life cycle. You have a car that, it's designed for 4 or 5 years, and then they have a new model. You have fashion that comes in and out of style, with the exception of Chuck Taylors, because they're always hip. But you should always, I'm not telling people how to live their life. I always try, excuse me, I've learned this from Phil Hale this week. I always try to reach further than before, I think that the most autobiographical thing that I've ever done is, not to plug my own movies, but the film Granular last year, which aired here, is the most autobiographical thing and a real strong statement, a thesis, if you could take it that way, for how I feel about the world. It's not fiction at all. It's an act of just an outcry to people to say, look, everything you're perceiving is just, how it's been presented to you. And you have every bit of power to say, I feel great about myself. I believe in myself. I'm good enough. I'm going to do it. But of course, there's a delay. I didn't rise to the occasion of the position that I held at the end of my time there. That took time. But whenever somebody asks me to do something, I say, I can do that, Yes, I can do that. For the first time, I was saying to someone earlier, some of the girls in the production room, I'm pretty happy. I have nothing to complain about. I have a house. I have a place to sleep. Beat sleeping on the floor like I used to when I first moved to California. I did sleep on the floor. My roommate slept on the couch and his sister slept in the bed. So we've come a long way from that. I would say that I'm doing great. I feel nice. There's nothing to complain about. But am I satisfied? No. I don't think I'll ever be satisfied. But I don't mean satisfied in a negative way. I mean satisfied like, do I want to do more? Yeah, of course. Like tonight, what time is it now? Because I'm probably supposed to run because we're going to show a new movie. So yeah, no, I'm the most relaxed I've ever been in my life. But I would like to say people looking to put titles on themselves should stop and think about it for a minute and think that they are more than just some title. Like they're not a concept artist, they're not a painter, they're not an environment artist. They're just a person with certain skills in a certain vein. And those skills should be considered in context with every other skill they have and their other perceptions of the universe, because all those things help inform them as creators.